Hey Latchkey kids and driving mutants, I'm Lady Shasha, mistress of the snark. This week's request comes courtesy of Dr. Nerdenstein, who says, "You're welcome. Can I make a request? For your next series review, could you please do the Nightmare on Elm Street series?" And even more recently, Rideshare and Delivery LLC also said, "Hi, can you do one on the Nightmare on Elm Street series?" Absolutely. As a matter of fact, this happens to be my favorite series out of the big three, and the big three being Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. Fun fact, I used to live on Elm Street when I was a kid, so when the TV spots came on for Nightmare on Elm Street, it hit me a little bit harder.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them. Nightmare on Elm Street. No one will survive.
Help me, please!
Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street, rated R.
And I wanted to see the movie so bad from those TV spots, even though they scared the crap out of me. But I had to wait a whole year until it hit cable for me to see it. My parents were great about taking us to see sci-fi horror movies or werewolf movies, but they weren't into the slasher thing. I actually think my dad might be a little bit scared or unsettled by slasher movies, and I get the impression that my mother sees them as lowbrow. I, on the other hand, love slasher movies, and I think I get it from my grandmother, who first watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre with me when I was 11 years old. She loves slasher movies, including the big three. She loves Candyman, but the Jeepers Creeper is her favorite slasher. She loved Halloween 2018, and she is looking forward to Halloween Kills. So shout out to Grandma for watching slasher movies with me. Since growing up, I've been fortunate to see other great slasher movies besides the big three, like Pieces and The Burning, but my favorite will always be A Nightmare on Elm Street. The opening is iconic. It shows Freddy making his glove, and you can hear him breathing. The score works to build tension. And that title font, like I said, iconic. One thing of note about Nightmare on Elm Street when compared to other slasher movies is that the parents are actually around. Of course, they are integral to the plot. But let's talk about the teens first. Nancy, Rod, Glenn, and Tina. There are two short scenes to establish them, and yet I feel like I know them more than any of the camp counselors on Friday, or anyone other than Lori, Jamie, and Tommy from the Halloween series. Shout out to Lynn Shay as the teacher. This movie has so many amazing scare scenes in it. One of my favorite being the scene that happened in high school. I always loved the way Tina's arm just flopped. It's the little things. Another amazing scene is the bathtub scene. The creativity and execution is still amazing to this day. I really like that Nancy's mother took her to the Sleep Institute to get help, but the doctors were just making up medical jargon that made no sense at all. At one point he said, "There's no sign of pathology in her EKG." Anyways, let's talk about the other kills. I recently mentioned Tina's kill in my review for Poltergeist because of the use of the rotating room. But they actually use the rotating room twice in Nightmare on Elm Street. But before we get to that incredible scene, let me tell you why Rod's death is like the most anticlimactic death to me in this. I respect the effort and the special effects artistry it takes to make the sheet look like it's moving on its own, but it's just, compared to the other deaths in this, that one was my least favorite. My favorite kill is definitely Glenn's. I like his kill because when you first see the movie, it's so unexpected. I mean, the part where Freddy's glove was totally expected, but the blood tower was not expected when you first see it. Another thing that makes this movie stand out so much are the dream sequences. They really do feel dreamlike, and they show Nancy experiencing things that we experience in dreams. Like, have you ever had a dream where you're trying to run but you just can't move fast enough? That's what the stairs scene represents to me, when she's trying to go up the stairs but they're turning into like quicksand. That's such a dreamlike thing to happen. Or when Tina's dreaming and she's walking in the alley and a random sheep walks by. That's a very dreamlike thing to happen. The first Nightmare on Elm Street also establishes how trash-ass the parents are. And let's take a moment to appreciate Nancy's alcoholic mother. I just wanted to pay tribute to how she was pulling bottles out of everywhere. She pulled a bottle out of the linen closet, but the funniest is when she pulled the bottle out from under the covers when she was in bed. A legend. Another thing that struck me as odd though when I was watching this, which by the way is on HBO Max and also on Peacock TV, is that the door in the house is blue. Why do I remember it being red? I mean, it's red in all the sequels, but suddenly it's blue in the first one. Am I being Mandela affected, or do I just only remember the house door being blue? You guys let me know in the comments if you remember the door on the house from the original Nightmare on Elm Street being red, or was it always blue and I'm just tripping? Two more things that elevate this beyond other slasher movies. Number one is the score. It is an amazing score. I put it right up there with the original score from Poltergeist. You can play that score for me and I can tell you what part of the movie is happening. It's just a really beautiful score. And the second thing are the effects. I did speak about the rotating room that they used to do what I call the blood tower in Glenn's death sequence, but also Freddy Krueger's original makeup. I feel like his makeup looks the best in this movie. I don't think it looked as good in part 2 or even in New Nightmare. I didn't like the redesign in New Nightmare, if I'm being completely frank. I think his makeup looked amazing in this. And the telephone scene, that's another one. That was such a great jump scare because no one expected that when that first happened. But the way that that was made and the tongue moving, that's a great effect. And I think it doesn't get enough credit. Some of the effects do look hokey, like when his arms are stretching in the alley, but I accept it because it's part of a dream sequence and things can look a little odd in dreams. Now, some people might criticize Wes Craven for reusing a little bit of a sequence that he formerly used in Last House on the Left, which is the booby traps, but I like it. I like that Nancy did this. I like that her character is strong and resilient and smart and a kind person. She's a really great final girl. I'm trying to think of what else I want to say about this other than it's good on all fronts. I can talk about Nightmare on Elm Street all day, but since I have to get through this whole series, I'm actually going to make this a little bit short. I'll be back in a moment to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Welcome back. Let's talk about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. First and foremost, if I could find that yellow shirt that Jesse had on when he was dancing in his room, I would have on that yellow shirt, but I couldn't find it anywhere and I didn't have time to make it. So I'm just going to do Part 2 in the same outfit that I had for Part 1. Also, I liked Part 2 before it was cool, and I went through years of people making fun of me for liking Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, but now it's cool to like Part 2. I see you, Johnny come latelys. Welcome to the party. But no worries, I'm used to that type of ribbing. I like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and I also like the Howling 3 The Marsupials. So I am no stranger to being the odd one out and liking things that other people may not like. I don't think initially people respected the comedic elements in this, like the family's response to Jesse waking up in the morning.
Mommy, why can't Jesse wake up like everybody else?
When I saw this as a kid, I totally missed all of the homoerotic elements of this. And word to wise, don't get my comments with any type of homophobic bullshit because I will send you to the block party without hesitation. As an adult, I enjoy the homoerotic part of this movie. It was way ahead of its time and I'm glad that it exists. By the way, there's an excellent documentary on Shudder about how the writer of this movie denied the presence of homoeroticism in his script for 20 years. He even went as far as to blame the director and even accused the actor who played Jesse of being too gay to play a straight character. Now that Google is a thing that exists and people can read the script, the writer eventually admitted those things not only were in the script, but a lot more was left out of the movie. Anyway, check out that documentary. I love how this movie starts out with Robert Englund being the driver of the school bus. In this, the new main character is Jesse, who is now moved into Nancy's old house, and the door is red on the house at this time. I'm actually not going to waste time going through the kills on this one because of the series, the kills are the weakest in this movie and they're just kind of forgettable. Some of them are downright lame. Usually something like that would really bug me, but there's something else that I connect to in this movie. The strongest element in this movie is the character of Jesse. He's likable and you want to root for him. And I like the little things that his character does, like when his father doesn't let him go out for the evening and tells him that he has to clean up his room and he stomps up the stairs. That's such a realistic teenager thing to do. Also, when he was dancing alone in his room, who hasn't done that? He's just a really nice kid and he comes across as someone that you'd want to be friends with. That's what's missing in a lot of modern horror movies. It's one of my biggest criticisms of Rob Zombie's Halloween. He made Laurie Strode the most unlikable, unsufferable little wench. Who would ever root for her? Anyways, Mark Patton makes an incredibly great Scream King because he actually screams in this movie. and that makes sense for the situation. What doesn't make sense is the scene with the birds. No one was even asleep, so why? The pool scene also doesn't make sense. Why are the hot dogs exploding? Why are the beers exploding? No one is asleep. It's not the dream world, so how can Krueger control these things? Also, the doors closing and locking themselves in Lisa's house. Again, not in the dream world, so how is Krueger controlling these things? Freddy Krueger can teleport now, the fence is electrified, and the pool is on fire for some reason. None of this makes sense outside of the dream world. Also, why there people-faced dogs? And here's where I'm going to get into how the special effects were not as good in this as in the first one. The people-faced dog doesn't even look as good as the one from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That one really creeped me out the first time I saw it. These just made me laugh. Then there's parts of this movie that goes from not making sense to absolutely ridiculous, like when Lisa goes to the factory and she sees a monster rat, and then the monster rat gets eaten by the monster cat. And I'm not making any of this up. This happens in this movie. That part was actually kind of stupid. Like, why is there a monster rat? Why is there a monster cat? I mean, was it stop motion? I guess it was stop motion. It was interesting to look at, but I don't know why it was there. Another thing I have to criticize about this movie is the score. It just is not as good as the original Nightmare on Elm Street score. And the one thing that is a positive is the Fonda Ray track. When he's dancing in the room, that's like the best part of the musical score for this movie. Or actually that'd be part of the soundtrack, but you get my point. Some of the background sounds don't make sense either. Like when Jesse and Lisa go to the factory and it sounds like the wind is blowing through the trees in a forest. That did not match up with the scene that they were actually filming. Also, I'm not a fan of the finger blades growing directly out of Freddy's hands. I like the glove. I think the glove is amazing. Why would you change that? The effect of the finger blades coming out of the fingers was done well. I can't argue that it's a bad effect. I just don't like that change. And also, like I said, I don't like how Freddy's makeup looks in this one. The song playing at the pool party sounds like they couldn't get the rights to use You Spin Me Around. I liked it. I miss groups like that. Like Dead or Alive, Depeche Mode, New Order, Erasure, Kajagoogoo. By the way, there's a poster of Lamal, the lead singer of Kajagoogoo, on Grady's wall. Now here is the weirdest part of the movie, is how Lisa defeats Freddy by basically loving him. She kisses him on the mouth and says how much she loves Jesse, because at this point Freddy Krueger is pretty much taken over Jesse's body. And why can I not remember how Freddy started to be on fire? I'm really drawing a blank on how he caught fire. Isn't that strange? Well, anyways, he caught fire and then he was like a husk on the ground, and then Jesse crawls out of that burnt shell husk again. And I know as I describe this movie, it doesn't sound like it's a good movie, but I still like it. I can't help it. I will admit it's not the best movie. No, there's a lot of things wrong with it. But then there's some things that are really great about it. And another thing that I think was a missed opportunity is I think that Jesse should have been one of the kids in the hospital in part 3. Like in most of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, they carry one survivor over to the next movie, or in the case of part 4, they carry 3 survivors into the next movie. And I think Jesse should have been one of the kids that was in the hospital in Dream Warriors. But anyways, that's enough of my little rantings and ravings about Nightmare on Elm Street 2. At the time of this video, I watched both of these on HBO Max, but I think they are also both on Peacock TV. Like I said, the Nightmare on Elm Street series is my favorite of the big 3, so obviously I'm gonna have a much more glowing opinion of it. But don't take my word for it, watch it for yourself. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it, and just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. What do you think of the Nightmare on Elm Street series? Let me know in the comments. And also, thank you Dr. Nernstein and Ride Share and Delivery LLC for suggesting that I review the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Stay tuned for more Nightmare on Elm Street this week. Hey Latchkey kids and driving mutants, I'm Lady Shasha, Mistress of the Snark. And let me tell you right now that this is the best sequel in the series. I think we can all agree on that. This opens with Kristen making a papier-mâché replica of Nancy's house, complete with the red door. This continues the trend of Nightmare on Elm Street parents being trash, with the introduction of Kristen's mother. Freddy makes it look like Kristen slit her wrists, and this is how she ends up in the hospital with the other Dream Warriors. This sequel returns to the original format of having a regular waking world and a dream world. It acts as if the events in part 2 didn't happen, and as I said in my review for part 2, I feel that Jesse should have been one of the kids in the hospital in part 3. The kids in the hospital are Will, who is into role-playing games, Jennifer, who wants to be an actress, Joey, who is like Johnny Depp Jr. and he doesn't speak, Kincaid, who loves wrestling and strongman competition type stuff and has the best lines in the movie.
Yeah, lifestyle of the rich and psychotic. Great, and that's my dick that's killing me.
From now on, your doors will be locked during sleeping hours. We'll start a policy of evening sedation for everybody.
The fuck you will!
Taryn, who is a recovering addict, and Philip, who likes to make puppets. The doctors are Dr. Neil Jordan, who genuinely wants to help the kids, and this nurse ratchet-faced lady. Nancy becomes her third doctor as she has just completed grad school and is doing her internship at the hospital. This movie makes you care about the characters. Except for her. I don't care about her, but I like the rest of these characters. I said it before and I'll say it again. As many times as I've watched and rewatched the Halloween series, the only characters I can remember are Laurie Strode, Jamie, Tommy Doyle, and Ben Tramer. And as for the Friday the 13th series, the only people I can remember is Tommy Jarvis, or I should say the Tommy Jarvis says, because there's like 3 of them. Tina, the girl that was telekinetic, and I feel like there's Ted, because
Ted! Hey, Ted, where the hell's the corkscrew?
whereas in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, I can remember Nancy, Glenn, Tina, Rod, Jesse, Kincaid, Joey, Kristen, Alice. I almost forgot about her because her personality is not quite that great. Sheila and Yvonne. I mean, I can nowhere near come as close to naming that many characters in either Halloween series or the Friday the 13th series. Another thing I like about this is how accurate this is to being in a psychiatric facility. The group therapy scene is legit. I've been there, I know from experience. And there's always one staff member who is a nurse ratchet type that just trips off the power to antagonize the patients. Aside from the characters and the authenticity of the hospital setting, another thing that's great about this are the kills. Philip gets killed first. The effects in this look great. One of the best in the series. One interesting thing that I notice is within the soundtrack, you can hear an effect that sounds like an unborn child's heartbeat during an ultrasound. That makes sense when you discover the reveal about Freddy's mother. Next, Jennifer gets killed in a manner that cannot possibly be mistaken for a suicide, but the staff still write it up as a suicide. This sequence is just phenomenal. The setup, the punchline, and the kill scene. The creativity, the humor, the execution. This is slasher movie goals. The kids are eventually forced to battle Freddy. Joey gets trapped by his hormones. Freddy defeated Taryn by using her addiction against her. The worst kill in this is Will's. You're supposed to be a wizard and this is all you can think to do? Random thought, how did Will's socks get this dirty when he doesn't walk? There is a subplot about Amanda Kruger that starts off so well in part 3, but would return in part 5 in a worse form. Also, shout out to the stunt person with this wig. Like I said, this is the best sequel in the series, and it's every bit as good as the first one in my opinion. And with that, I'll be back in a moment to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Welcome back. Let's get into A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. The first time I saw this, I didn't realize that Tuesday Night was playing the same Kristen character that Patricia Arquette had just played in Part 3. I honestly thought she was a new character until they showed her in school with Kincaid and Joey. Unfortunately, this reunion is short-lived because in this movie, Freddy comes back in the oddest way. Kincaid's dog pisses on Freddy's bones in a dream and brings him back. That's a thing that really happened. It doesn't make sense, but we accepted it in 1988. The way Freddy strokes Kincaid's head after he kills him is so... I don't even have words for it. Joey, who I nicknamed Johnny Depp Jr., not only is in the bed watching TV with headphones on, just like Johnny Depp's Glenn, he also gets killed in the bed. Still victimized by his hormones. Robert Englund as a school nurse was a cool scene. I thought that was kind of funny. For me, in this particular sequel, the most iconic scene is the dream sequence on the beach. I don't care what you say, the way Freddy was standing there and putting on the sunglasses, it's the image I associate most with this movie. Yes, it's campy and over the top, but it's fun. After Kristen gets got, Alice becomes the main character. She is boring. Everyone around her has more personality than she, but that's sort of the point, because you get to see her develop a personality. It's made up of different parts of her friends and her brother, but it's there. Each time Freddy kills one of her friends, she acquires an aspect of their personality. The next to go is Sheila. She was my favorite character in this. I identified with her so much. I was a black girl in honors physics, which only had 3 other girls in a class of 27. Plus I have asthma, that's why you can sometimes hear me taking deep breaths in between sentences. I'm working with less oxygen. Her death made me so sad the first time I saw this. And by the way, I was 14 years old the first time I saw this movie on video, so I really could identify with it. And I watched it so many times when I had it on VHS. Rick's death scene starts off good with a burnt Kristen in an elevator, but when he ends up in the Dream World dojo and they play Freddy's theme in a stereotypically Asian style, I should complain about this wig, but it's not nearly as bad as the stunt person's wig is when Alice acquires her brother's nunchuck skills. Look at this stiff mess. It's not even the right color. Debbie's death has the best effects in this movie. The effects used to make her arms turn into roach limbs look great. And the best effect of this whole series is when she face plants into the roach motel, and when she lifts her head, her human face comes off and you see the roach face. The thing is, how did she fall asleep when she was lifting weights? Or are we to assume that when she dreams about lifting weights? I always wondered that. It makes sense, because when I used to play volleyball in school, I sometimes dreamt I was playing volleyball, so maybe that's what it was. She was dreaming that she was lifting weights. Anyways, let's talk about Alice's outfit. She has on long johns, a T-length skirt, and socks with flats. What is this? Why is this? Alice is trying to save Dan, so she runs home and has a clothing change montage. I laughed my ass off when she said fucking A. Alice goes to karate fight Freddy, and no, I'm not making that part up. She actually goes to karate fight Freddy in a chapel or church of some sort. And she's saying bonsai in the wrong context, just like her brother did. But it seems that she didn't have to fight him at all because she defeats him by showing him his own reflection. Another effect that is still great looking today is Freddy's demise, where the souls are trying to escape his body and pull him apart. That looked great. There are close-up shots of Freddy's chest with actors in it, and then farther away shots of the arms coming out from everywhere, and it looks great. It might even be a better achievement than the Roach Motel death. What do you guys think? Which effect did you like better? The Roach Motel or the souls trying to tear Freddy apart? Or Sheila getting her life force sucked out? This one gets a lot of hate, but I only think it's because it comes after part 3, and part 3 was so phenomenal. Part 4 is not as bad as what you may remember. This director did a lot of overhead shots, like the ones James Wan was being praised for most recently in *Malignant*. This has some interesting music choices, like Sinead O'Connor's song with MC Lyte, "Put Your Hands on Me." This also has a Fat Boy song called "Are You Ready for Freddy?", in which Freddy spits a hot 16. I don't really know how many bars he spit, I didn't count. Whose idea was it for Freddy to rap anyways? Speaking of music, I found out some interesting info. As I was listening to the Fat Boys rapping over the ending credits, I remembered that there was another rap song out at the same time that was by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. And it was also a Nightmare on Elm Street rap. And I thought to myself, did this movie have 2 different rap songs associated with it? Apparently, that song was not made in association with the movie at all. It was a song by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince called "A Nightmare on My Street," which was just made for their album. And it made them end up in court for copyright infringement. Second question for you. Which song did you like better? The Fat Boys rap song about Nightmare on Elm Street, or DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince's song about Nightmare on Elm Street? I like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Not as much as I like Part 3, The Dream Warriors. But this made for a great double feature. At the time of this recording, both movies were available on HBO Max. I think they might both be available on Peacock TV as well. But like I always say, don't take my word for it. Watch it for yourself. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it, and just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. Stay tuned for my review of A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child, and Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Hey Latchkey kids and driving mutants, I'm Lady Shasha, Mistress of the Snark. And let's get into A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. In the tradition of the Nightmare on Elm Street parents being trash, they still are in this. Except for Alice's dad, who's still trying to maintain his sobriety after the events of the previous film. Dan's parents only care about him being an athlete. Greta's mother is a stage mom who's always pressuring her about her appearance. Mark's father doesn't respect him as an artist and wants him to work in a factory. We don't see Yvonne's parents after the graduation picture, so we don't know if there are any issues there. Just like Sheila in Part 4, and Rochelle in The Craft, Hollywood still thinks that black girls don't have parents or parental issues. Someone please tell Hollywood that black teenage girls also have parents, and sometimes they have regular problems with their parents. Anyways, I like Yvonne, can you tell? And Kelly Jo Minter is my favorite horror actress. She is a certified scream queen. I loved her in this, in People Under the Stairs, and in Popcorn. She was also in Mask, which isn't really a horror movie. Well, it's not a horror movie at all. And she did a really great job with that. And also, there's a blink and you miss her moment in The Lost Boys, because she was in that as well, but a lot of her parts were left on the cutting room floor. Like, they cut a lot of her scenes. But she's a great actress and she deserved better. I love her, and what I like most about her in this is that she survives. I almost forgot she was in Summer School too. I liked her in that. You know who doesn't survive? Now, we've established the Elm Street tradition. If you make it to the end of a movie, then the beginning of the next movie, you're gonna get taken out. And that's exactly what happens to Dan. The returning main character is Alice. And is it me, or did she have red hair in part 4 and now she has blonde? Out of the Elm Street series, this is my least favorite. I take that back. This is my second least favorite. My least favorite is that trash garbage remake. This does have some cool effects and introduced us to Baby Freddy. It's silly as but it has some nice animatronic work. Let's talk about the kills. They're creative in concept, but they misfire sometimes. Dan gets turned into Tetsuo the Iron Man, but in motorcycle form. Greta is force-fed to death and becomes a garbage pail kid. Mark's death is almost as dumb. You write comics and that's the best you can come up with? It's only slightly less dumb than Will's weak sauce wizard from part 3. Speaking of part 3, this revisits the Amanda Krueger story that was introduced in part 3. In case you need a reminder, part 3 told us about a nun named Amanda Krueger who was accidentally locked in a sanatorium for the criminally insane, and she was SA'd by 100 maniacs. To defeat Freddy this time, they have to release Amanda's tortured soul so that she can battle Freddy, who has been using Alice's baby's dreams in order to continue his reign of terror. Yvonne goes to find Amanda's remains, and Alice ends up in the Goblin King's labyrinth with her unborn son and Freddy. Then Yvonne finds Amanda's remains and releases her spirit so that she can team up with Alice and her unborn son to fight Freddy. Freddy is reduced to an infant again and gets absorbed into his ghost mama's body. Yvonne, Alice, and baby Jacob survive. People crap all over this one because it's not nearly as good as the others in the series, but compared to Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween Resurrection, Jason Goes to Hell, Jason Takes Manhattan, or any Hellraiser after the 4th one, this isn't that bad. It's just bad when you compare it to the first 4 Elm Streets. It also bears repeating that the effects for this were really good, especially when it comes to that little animatronic baby Freddy creature. I can't say that I remember the score in this at all, even though I just watched it to tell you whether it was good or bad, but the end credits do have another rap song just like part 4 had. The song is called Any Way I Gotta Swing It by Houdini, and the music video is on YouTube. So the takeaway is Nightmare on Elm Street 5, not as bad as you remember it, but still not quite all that good. And with that, I'll be back in a moment to talk about Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Welcome back. Let's get into Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. This takes place partially at a youth shelter. Maybe they were trying to recapture some of the spirit of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. While this still includes trashy-ass parents, they do introduce some other characters, like Maggie, who works as a counselor at the shelter, and Doc, played by Yaphet Kotto, is the psychiatrist at the shelter. His wig, though? Oh, hell no! The first 27-year-old teenager that we are introduced to pops up in Springwood with amnesia. He is brought to the youth shelter. The other almost 30-year-old teenagers are Tracy, a tough girl with a sexually abusive father, Carlos, a smiley kid with a physically abusive mother, and Spencer, a rich kid with an emotionally abusive father. He's the only one who could actually pass for an actual teenager. He's played by Breckin Meyer, who we also saw in The Craft. Roseanne and Tom Arnold make an appearance at a weird town fair where the teens notice there are no children. Freddy tortures each one of them by taunting them with their previous traumas. With Carlos, it's his abusive mother and using his hearing impairment against him. With Spencer, it's his abusive father, his love of video games, and his weed usage, which they totally overplay and make it seem like weed is just like taking LSD. It is not. With Tracy, it's her traumatic abuse at the hands of her father. The kills are done in such a cartoonish way. Even the score is very cartoonish. And if I was 5 years old when this movie came out, this would be my favorite horror movie. I should ask those of you watching this, were any of you little children when you first saw Freddy's Dead? And what did you think of it? Did you like it? Because it was very childish to me. There's a Johnny Depp cameo in this, which was kind of fun. And I heard that he was a little bit disappointed that he was not asked to do a cameo in the Freddy vs. Jason. This is the movie that really confirms that Freddy is a dream demon, as he is possessed by 3 small dream demons. So I guess he's a person who's possessed by a dream demon. But either way, he is a supernatural entity. I find that bit of lore interesting, as well as some of the backstory about his childhood and the fact that they gave him a child. Freddy's makeup doesn't look horrible in this, but it does look too dry. Smack some KY jelly on that mug and it would have worked. Except for those ears. What's up with that? This features another rap song during a scene where Tracy is hitting a heavy bag, and it's Chubb Rock's Treat Me Right, which I found kind of funny. That particular song was not made specifically for this movie. It was just a rap song that came out either in 89 or 90. And I used to always hear it at the Round and Roll skating rink. The last 10 minutes or so are in 3D. For this review, I watched the 2D version that's available on HBO Max. But I did get to see this in the movie theater when it first came out in 3D. This one I saw with my friend from school, my middle sister, and my dad. He tried to buy the tickets and dip, but then the box office attendant said they can't go into an R-rated movie by themselves because none of them are 17 years old. So my poor dad had to sit through Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, even though he doesn't like any of these movies. He doesn't like slasher movies at all. Thanks, Dad, for taking one for the team. For that reason alone, I have nostalgia for this movie, despite how not so great it is. It's still better than Jason Goes to Hell the Final Friday. I told a story about getting to see Jason Goes to Hell in the movie theater in one of my tag videos. I'll put it at the end of this video. But that was the second slasher movie that I got to see in a movie theater. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare was the first slasher movie I got to see in a movie theater, and then Jason Goes to Hell the Final Friday was the second one I got to see in a movie theater. All of the other 80s slasher movies that I've seen, I always saw them on video or on HBO or something. At the time of this recording, I was able to watch these on HBO Max, but I think they might also be available on Peacock TV. But like I always say, don't take my word for it, watch it for yourself. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it, and just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. What did you think of Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, or Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare? Let me know in the comments. Stay tuned for my review of Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason. Hey Latchkey kids and driving mutants, I'm Lady Shasha, Mistress of the Snark. Let's get into Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This starts with Heather having a nightmare about her husband having one of his special effects stunts going wrong. Then lots of weird things start to happen, like how the aftershock from the earthquake left 4 cracks on the wall. It's all timed so well. Her son Dylan behaving oddly. This all works to make the day feel off, and it created an anxious feeling within me. Heather's son Dylan is played by Miko Hughes, the actor who also played Cage in Pet Sematary. One thing that bugged me is that Dylan's room was on the first floor, with the bed up against these double windows by a pool. He's barely out of toddlerhood. I would have put him upstairs nearby. I almost forgot to mention that in this, all the actors are playing themselves. That's why Heather is Heather and not Nancy. John Saxon plays himself, not Nancy's dad. Robert Englund is Robert and not Freddy. Wes Craven and producer Bob Shea even appears as themselves as well. Speaking of Robert, his painting looks like it was painted by the same artist who painted Candyman in Cabrini Green. This movie is a little bit wild. First of all, did Wes Craven actually tape some knives to this baby's hands? Shout out to Lynn Shay, who pops up as a nurse at the hospital Nancy has to take Dylan to when he appears to have a seizure. This doctor is the judgiest judgmental McJudgerson there ever was. Freddy takes a while to show up, and when he does, it's like, I don't like buff Freddy, muscle milk Freddy, GNC Freddy, swole up on your ass Freddy. Also, is he wearing leather pants? When he shows up again, it's even worse. He later shows up with another new sweater. This one is a mock turtleneck. He's also sporting a green hat, trench coat, leather pants, and these lace-up combat boots. I also don't like the redesigned bone glove. It doesn't look as scary as the OG glove. Plus, who is scared of anyone in leather pants?
You don't scare me at all.
Jane, I want to talk to you later.
Goodbye.
Anyway, they try to sedate Dylan and he sleepwalks across the highway home. And there's a giant Freddy in the clouds trying to get him. Heather chases him throughout all of this. And when she and Dylan get back to the house, John Saxon shows up again. Only he's not calling her Heather, he's calling her Nancy. And at this point, the house turns back into the house on Elm Street, complete with the blue door. While she was being distracted by John Saxon, Dylan goes missing again, and so I started to say Nancy. Heather has to go back into the dream world to retrieve Dylan. She ends up going into Freddy's lair, which is no longer a boiler room, and now it's like some type of ancient ruins looking place. This movie plays like a Wes Craven's greatest hits collection. We've got rotating rooms, quicksand stairs, stretching arms, tongue action. I mean, twice the tongue action. But wait, there's more. Giant Freddy in the sky is back too. This ends with Heather and Dylan defeating Freddy Krueger in a similar way that Hansel and Gretel defeated the witch in Hansel and Gretel, because that's what book Heather was reading to Dylan earlier in the film. When they emerge back into the real world, they find Wes Craven's script. There's a thank you message that says, "Thank you, Heather, for playing Nancy one more time." This movie is overrated. It's not bad by any means, but it is not the masterpiece that so many people make it out to be. And with that, I'll be back in a moment to talk to you about Freddy vs. Jason, the movie 10 years in the making. Welcome back. Let's get into Freddy vs. Jason. This starts with Freddy Krueger lamenting about how no one remembers him.
I can't come back if nobody remembers me. I can't come back if nobody's.
So he revives Jason to make the kids scared again by impersonating his mother and telling him to go to Springwood. Jason, you should have known that wasn't your mother. She always wears a blue sweater, not a red one. Then we get a scene with a girl, a 35-year-old grown-ass woman going skinny dipping at Crystal Lake, and Jason takes her out with a quickness and heads on over to Springwood. Next we get another scene with some 27-year-old teenagers hanging out. Lori, Hat Girl, and Kelly Rowland. I'm not learning their names. Then two jerk-faced boy grown-ass men show up acting like complete asses. Baseball Hat Girl gets it on with the more abusive of the two, and this plays out just like a Friday the 13th movie. He even gets folded up the way Jason likes to do. I like that too. Kelly encourages Lori to go get with the other repulsive dude bro guy, which really irritated my life because she was encouraging her friend to get with this loser, and yet she was super mean to, what was his name? I want to say Dunkelman. Linderman. She was so mean to Linderman for no reason at all. But dude bro is goals. Whoever wrote that bit of ridiculousness, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Two other characters are introduced as a couple of guys who were sent to a mental facility for believing Freddy was after them. They break out of the facility when they see on the news that there was a murder at Lori's house. And Lori's house was Nancy's old house, except now the door is yellow. There's another character that goes to school with them and ends up with them after Jason shows up to the rave. I think his name is Freeberg. He's my favorite character and has some of the best lines.
The goalie was pissed about something.
Gotta go! Now! Come on!
Let me handle this, bitch.
I hate this one scene that he's in because it's the second time in this series where they've made weed seem like a hallucinogen. It is not. Old anti-cannabis ass propaganda. His kill scene was great though. He got split into two. And I enjoyed that. This has some nice callbacks to the series. There's a dream goat, which I'm pretty sure is a callback to the dream lamb from part 1. Giving the kids at the psych ward Hypnocil to suppress their dreams is a callback to part 3. And there's faces through objects that should be solid, and that's also a callback to part 1. Anyways, Freddy turns into a giant caterpillar and possesses Freeberg and then tranquilizes Jason. The surviving grown-ass individuals decide to take a sedated Jason back to Crystal Lake. While he's sedated, Freddy messes with him in the dream world. Freddy discovers that Jason is afraid of water and reduces him to the crying kid he was in Jason Takes Manhattan. This is why this had to be Freddy vs. Jason and it couldn't be Freddy vs. Michael Myers, because what is Michael Myers afraid of?
Doug, what is not a damn thing?
My middle sister had the nerve to say that she wished that there was a Jason vs. Michael movie. I told her that would be a silent film. Anyways, Lori finally pulls Freddy out into the real world, and this is when he really gets to get it on with Jason. That didn't come out right. You know what I meant. I saw this in the movie theater, and it was at this point that the audience screamed in anticipation. Then they literally picked sides. When Freddy had the upper hand, Elm Street fans cheered. When it looked like Jason Voorhees was winning, Friday the 13th fans cheered. It was like two groups of fans cheering at a sports event. I will say that this movie is much more fun to watch in the theater with a crowd of people than it is to watch at home on TV. The effects were hit and miss because they used too much CGI for my taste. And this does feel a little bit dated and like a time capsule of the early 2000s. There was nu metal, early 2000s R&B, low-rise bootcut jeans, a member of Destiny's Child, and people drinking Everclear. One thing that was late and delayed is them having a rave in a cornfield. That's some 90s-ish. By the early 2000s, it was all about the foam parties and mega festivals. Not for me, because I don't do festivals due to the walking in the dirt thing and the porta potty situation. And a foam party is like bathing with hundreds of strangers, and that was gross to me even before the Pandorama. Another thing that dates this movie is that times have changed for the better as far as what is acceptable to say. Freddie and Kelly would have been so canceled if this came out today. Between
Sweet. Dark.
and this line right here,
What kind of runs around in a Christmas sweater?
bear in mind, these were always f***ed things to say. It's only now that people are receiving consequences for their fuckery, and I'm here for that. That said, this movie is a product of its time, which is nearly 20 years ago, and it was fun to watch in the movie theater at the time, despite its faults. At the time of this recording, this movie was available on HBO Max as well as Peacock TV. And I say that because, like I always say, don't take my word for it, watch it for yourself. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it, and just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. How do you feel about New Nightmare? Did you see Freddy vs. Jason? Did you know that there was almost a Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash? At least there was a comic series. What horror versus movie would you like to see happen? Let me know in the comments. Until next time.